Hello and welcome to another episode of Devs on Tape. Again from DOAG 2024 in Nuremberg. This is a single English recording this time, so bear with us that we might have some word finding issues, but Connor will help us surely, right?
And it's really early in the morning because Kai had no other slot available. Thank you, Kai.
It's very nice from you to say that because of the slot issue, not because of my inability to proper plan anything here. But yeah, we're very, very happy. So I almost forgot. Hello, Caro.
Hi, Kai.
All right, great. Didn't miss that. So we have a very special guest for this podcast. Maybe it's like each and every year here in Nuremberg. We welcome Connor McDonald. Hi, Connor.
Hi, guys. It's good to be back. I know that sounds like some sort of rock star. It's great to be back.
It's great to be back.
But no, like in all seriousness, it's good to be back at DOAG. It's certainly a favorite of mine. And it's good to be loitering around the podcast lounge and be roped in. Yes, for those listeners who are unaware, Kai has sent me 17 different calendar invites for this session, each one being slightly different. And somehow we settled on the earliest hours in the morning possible. So
right after the party yesterday.
Hence my, I'm going the husky deep voice.
Yeah,
nothing to do with the alcohol consumption.
It is not the wrong settings in the recorder, right? But yeah, so 8 a.m., 8:30 in the morning. We had a coffee. It's everything fine, I guess. And we have a couple of questions. I mean, we talked about many things in the last recordings. And yeah, we start with the question, what happened in between? What happened in between the recordings?
What have I done the last 12 months? Well,
yes.
That's a good question. Let's
Receiving calendar invites from Kai, maybe?
That's right, yeah. Get lots of emails from Kai and Twitter DMs. But so after DOAG last year, that was pretty much, I think, my last event for the year. I think UKOG was before DOAG. Is that correct last year? They were adjacent. I can't remember which one I did before the other. But that was pretty much the last few years as it typically is. Then in January, I had a bit of time off, and then February, Sai from the India user group does a multi-cloud event. And as we all know, we're now singing from the multi-cloud hymn sheet. So back in February, I think we'd only announced just us and Microsoft. And then throughout the year, we had the Google, and then at CloudWorld, the AWS one. So we're all big multi-cloud happy families now. But so in February, I went to India, and if you've never been to India on one of Sai's trips, they are both hectic and insane. It's normally like we did 6 cities in about 7 days. So you literally, you talk at an event, and then you literally take your bags from the event to the airport, jump on a plane. You'll often land at like 1 a.m. in the morning, go to the hotel. The next day you get up, let's do another conference. But if you ever get a chance, reach out to Sai if you ever want to do some talking in India. It's a breathtaking country, fantastic experience. And yeah, it's insane. But it's, in terms of being a speaker, having all those logistics and everything looked after for you and just being able to absorb the wonder of the country is pretty cool. Then after that, we had Mumbai Cloud World. So I had some involvement in Mumbai Cloud World when, putting my Oracle marketing hat on. There's the Cloud World tours that go around the world. And I think there'll be the same thing next year. So keep your eye out for a city near you, the Cloud World tours. Then what happened then after that? So April, May was pretty quiet. I was planning on going to Apex Connect, but the travel gods intervened and said that couldn't be done. But as a result, I think Apex Connect was super successful, not because of my absence, but maybe because of my absence. But I know that Chris Rice went and Mike Hitcher went. So pretty much the brains trust of Apex and Ords.
Yeah, we catch them for Devs on Tape.
All there. So that was, I'm sure that would have been an absolutely huge event. After that, I went to K+A, and K+A was in, where was it? Nashville. First time I'd been to Nashville. And it has that sort of Vegas feel to it in the sense that the place parties all the time. But I found it a bit more friendly than Vegas. You could walk the streets and people were happy to talk to you. And I went to the all-important, Country Music Hall of Fame and realized how little I know about country music and also how little I want to know about country music.
I wanted to say that, so I don't know if you wanted.
But it was good fun, and we went to what's the name of that big theatre? The Grand Old Opry. That's what it was. So, which I never knew of its heritage and its history. And apparently, it's where all the great country singers have made their mark and whatever. So, that was organised, I think, by the ACE program, and so that was super cool. Then what after that? then Cloud World. After that, had some talks in Vegas, and that was a lot of fun. And that sort of brings me through to here. I think we've done a number of events in Australia, just smaller scale events with the Australian user group. And I know this sounds like I document my year purely on conferences I go to. But other than that, there's been the usual stuff. I've been cranking out YouTube videos and the occasional podcast. I've been a bit lazy, unlike you guys on the podcast. I came to a halt around about July after I did one with Martin Bark.
Oh, that's pretty sad for our listeners. Maybe if there's some listeners listening to your podcast and our podcast, we did the same, right? So we ended up in end of June, I think.
Yeah.
And the summer pause is still ongoing, right? So the recording from this conference will be the first for this year.
And I have to mention, not that I want to be, not that I want to take the tone down to a sad place, but I then pretty much have done nothing for the last couple of months because unfortunately my sister passed away a couple of months ago. And then my partner's mother passed away 2 weeks ago.
Oh.
So
I'm sorry.
not that I want to be like downer, but like, yeah, so that obviously has an impact on what you do in terms of a technical sphere. But one thing, as I said, not to try to bring the tone down, one thing that I have enjoyed is being back at things like DOAG and stuff like that. It is really good to be able to, just interact again with the community. And, it's a cliche when people say, oh, conferences are about networking. But what I found is, especially because I've had a bit of heartache, it's been so good just to have that idle banter with people, get your head in a good space, because conferences are always super positive. Everyone's super excited about stuff. So yeah, it's been pretty cool. And what did Thanos say in the Avengers? And it all leads back to here. The annual podcast episode. So
yes, looking forward to it, and even accept a invitation for 8:30 in the morning. So I was getting up this morning and I was hating myself for the same exact reason. Why do I do that? But yeah, for our listeners, we have 4 recordings today, so you can be happy. You can look forward to 4 new recordings just from today, right? And
but mainly German.
Mainly German. Yeah, this might be good for our listeners, but as a little service advice or service information, you can hear our podcast in German language with English subtitles on YouTube. Undertitles is the most German translation. Undertitles.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. The subtitles English and each and every other language, I guess, too. You can read it during the YouTube video.
Yeah, but what did John said? It's like reading a book. On YouTube, so I don't know.
When it should publish a book, right? With all the transcripts from our recordings.
Well, one of the things I've been looking at is last year I got 1 million email spams from AI companies all promoting their services, and there was one whose name I can't remember, but they said they would take a YouTube video of yours and they would redo the entire video in a language of your choosing, and they would use your own voice, but they change your voice to. In this case, I chose Spanish.
Yeah.
And they'd even change your lip movements and mouth movements on the video. Yeah. And I thought, I'll give it a go. So I paid, I think it was $10 US for a minute. So it was not cheap. But I sent it off, and after about 2 days, they sent back a video. And it was me talking in Spanish. And I was like super impressed. Anyway, I didn't know if it was any good because I don't speak Spanish. I'm one of those embarrassingly monolingual people. But I sent it to Monica from the Apex team. I'm sure you know Monica Groy, and I said, look, what are your thoughts? And she came back and she said, it's like conversational Spanish. She said it was really good. The only thing it got wrong was the video I sent had references to 23C. And every time I said that, the AI had turned it into 23 Celsius because it thought it was temperature. But other than that, she said it was fine. So that's obviously an expensive way. But there are other AI services I've seen recently which will take your voice and just do the audio. So you could, I would recommend you guys could explore where you could take your podcast episodes in, say, English or in German and say, I'd like a new version of the podcast episode in another language.
That would be great to have it automatically redone. So we have to restart the recording, the video.
You haven't started the recording yet.
I did that.
For listeners tuning in, there's a bit of animosity in the room all of a sudden between Caroline and Kai, debating who pressed record on the camera. Or who didn't press record. I just want to keep our listeners up to date as to what's going on. Great, maybe. Suddenly it's really cold in here. So the temperature seems to have dropped a lot.
No, we're fine. Everything's right. I guess I put on... No. Okay.
Maybe it just turned off. We will see.
So for the background, this camera is recording like 4K 60 frames per second in ProRes HDR, and it's 800 gigabytes for 1 hour. So there's an SSD on it and everything else, and it's just recording for 20-second snippets for YouTube and so on. But I think, did we interrupt you?
No.
No,
Sorry.
the recording stuff. I was guessing where we stopped. So yeah, our listeners might be with us because it's more a chatty podcast this time.
No, we were talking about audio dubbing, how we could do these podcasts in another language. So because I'm going to explore, because YouTube nowadays lets you do multiple audio tracks for a video.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at, because I was originally thinking about doing another YouTube channel of my stuff in, say, Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how people used to do it. They'd have multiple channels. But now on your single channel, you can let people choose the audio dubbing. So, because I haven't researched pricing yet, but if I'm thinking, like, if it'll say, let's say it's $1, well, even $10 per recording, like the ability to, reach out to an audience. Because for me, it would probably be, I'd probably record things in Hindi because I have a lot of people in India watch my videos, and maybe Spanish. And that would make up for my, my lack of language skills, which I'm sure I'll never be able to solve.
I mean, I think I heard the first time about that from Mr. Beast. But I think they're manually redoing all the videos in different languages. So there's someone sitting there and recording the voice of Mr. Beast and translate that. So, but he has like 20 YouTube channels.
True, but he's been shutting them down. That's how I found out one of the information. So once YouTube introduced the multiple dubbing, he's like, I know the Mr. Beast Spanish channel didn't put any content out for the last couple of years because now you can choose the Spanish dubbing on his main channel.
If you use some YouTube talk right now, but if you use the other dubbing, can you also replace the videos so it's not just like in a really bad and old,
like those old kung fu movies, where you see the lips move for 5 seconds and someone says yes.
Yeah. Do you know that?
I don't think so. I don't think it's a brand new version of the video. I mean, as I said, you can pay an AI system to do it, but I think that'd be pretty pricey.
Maybe they have that on YouTube as a feature in the future. That they say, okay, we do the lip sync for you and everything AI powered. But I don't know if I would prefer like 2 good running YouTube accounts in different languages. You have them separated. Or if I would like to have everything in one place and everything in one video. I don't know. What would I prefer? To have multiple channels that have many followers?
I can imagine that it's better for the algorithm, because if you have videos which click more or which are clicked more or seen more by users, you get more views because YouTube promotes videos which are performing well. So I think it might be better from a performing perspective.
I think it's fair to say none of the 3 of us in the room will be retiring off YouTube monetary income anytime soon.
That was what I was guessing. Maybe there's just one person needed now to administrate the one single account he has, but I mean, we have like 6 listeners on YouTube, I guess, because YouTube. So if someone is listening to podcasts, I think the last platform you would go to is YouTube and see like wavelines and listen to the video, unless you want to see the subtitles and your player on your phone or something is not showing the subtitles for that. But back to topic, I would love to see Caro speak Japanese, like the lip sync stuff, and so some real exotic languages. That would be great. And we're saying, oh, Caro, I didn't know that you can speak Japanese fluently.
Yeah, I think I would translate to English first, because then I can hear how I would sound if I could speak English well.
Oh, great. And then Connor will switch from Hindu to...
Maybe German. Maybe German.
Oh, that would be interesting. Maybe that's $10 worth.
Yeah, I've already seen these some examples from German YouTubers which were converted in such an AI, but I had a look at it at the best, and it was really expensive. So you paid for 1 minute, and I thought about putting our podcast in there, but it would be $10 per minute, so a 60-minute podcast. It's too expensive for us.
Not worth it.
No.
I guess. Yeah, we see that this will get cheaper if there's more movement in the AI part. But yeah,
I imagine so.
Okay, we stop on which stop on your travel in 2024? Like, DOAG is the last thing for the year, and what is happening in December for you?
For me, very little. I know the UKOG conference is on, but last year, because it was adjacent to DOAG, I could do both in one trip. But it's just not practical from a financial perspective to come back to the UKOG, which is a bit of a bummer for me because it's back in Birmingham this year. And the UKOG, no disrespect intended to DOAG, holds a very dear place in my heart because it was probably I think it was my first ever overseas talk.
Wow.
I'd done talk for the Australian user groups for a number of years, but then my wife and I emigrated to the UK back in 1998 because of the Y2K. It was work everywhere. My father was Irish, so I have an EU passport. So, and my wife, now ex-wife, but she had a UK passport, so we could both work in anywhere in Europe without any issues. So we thought, we'll chase the money. And the funny thing is I always feel guilty saying this, but she was right. She said she wanted to go to the UK so she could expand her horizons and go traveling. And I was like, I'm here for the dollars. And she was right. I came over thinking I'm just going for the money, but it was actually a great experience, more just because there was work everywhere. You'd pick a place you'd like to see and you go get a contract there because there was a contract wherever you wanted. Even in places like France, which is obviously very strictly French speaking, they would take English speaking developers because they just had so much work on. So long story short, that's how I got involved in my UKOG first talk overseas. And so then it was at the Birmingham ICC. So this year it's not at the ICC because that's a massive venue, but it's still back in Birmingham. I'd have loved to have gone there. And also friend of the show, maybe Tim Hall, Oracle base. He hasn't given any talks at conferences for a long, long time.
We didn't have him in the podcast yet.
Oh, he'd be a good get. I've had him on my podcast. He's always happy to talk tech. But yeah, I know I don't think he's done any conferences since COVID. And so he's coming out to do some talks at the UKG. So I think it'll be a really spectacular event, but unfortunately I won't be there. And then it's sort of heading into Christmas. So I'll just be doing the Ask Tom. I do a monthly office hours, which unfortunately I had to cancel this one because I'm in DOAG. But December's office hours, we do an annual thing where we do no content in advance. We just say it's going to be open Q&A. It goes as long as it goes. And so that's always fun because you're more just, there's no slides, there's no demos. It's all just scribbling on a piece of paper with the camera mounted above the paper. So we just scribble notes and do it that way. So, and that'll be pretty much it for the year for me. And then we start thinking about next year.
Yeah. What is going on next year? How do you start?
Same old. It's like the same. So the multi-cloud 2025 event will be in February. So I'll be off to India in February for 6 cities in 7 days. Other than that, I've submitted for a number of developer conferences because one of the things I think it's important is it's very easy to get trapped in your own sort of little voice bubble. So as much as I love coming to Oracle events, and catching up with people that I haven't seen typically for a year. And that's always, heartwarming and good fun. I think also if we're going to have the IT community prosper, especially if they're using Oracle, then you've got to get out more to the developer events, which might not be so much Oracle based. And what's more, in some of the events, there's even sort of open hostility to Oracle because of that thing of, we don't like big companies, we don't like big business. It's all about open source. So I'm keen to reach out to those places and see if I can get some talks accepted, just so I can, hopefully bridge that gap a bit and, show that we're not the big bad beast and help people succeed. Because one of the things that I had at Cloudwood, I had a couple of customer meetings where these were people coming from Postgres back to Oracle simply because they'd underestimated the amount of work they would have to do themselves to have, to run a Postgres environment in a sort of an enterprise space. This is not me dunking on Postgres. It was more the fact that, it's that balancing act. You either pay for features in the product and have less operational overheads, or you pay for the operational overheads at the cost of less features in the product. It's just a choice that people make. So I had a couple of customer meetings where people we're looking at moving away from Postgres back to Oracle simply to reduce that. One telco company, I think they said we have 30 DBAs looking after our systems.
Oh, wow.
And they said, that's a lot of overhead that we're looking at trying to, we'd rather relocate those people to do other tasks that are more practical to help the company as opposed to just making sure things stay up and running. So, and then it'll be as back in the conferences, Ask Tom, office hours, hopefully record some more podcasts. I might flip the tables and get each of you individually on my podcast and see how we go.
Yeah, there might be a conference where we both attend. I don't know how often this will happen. you can fly us over to Australia. No worries.
Well, you're always welcome in Perth. I can show you all the site. The singular. It's one of the great scams. If you ever fly to Perth, this is my word of warning to you. As you arrive at the international airport and you're walking through that area to get through customs and baggage and all that kind of stuff, there's these beautiful murals along the wall of the terminal of all the various sites that you can come to once you've landed in Perth.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a wine region called Margaret River, famous wines there. There's a place called Broome, which has a beach which is 80 miles long, single bay, 80 miles long. All these amazing things, kangaroos, koalas, all sorts of, all the things that you would think of wanting to go see if you're in Australia. What they don't tell you is the scale. So the Margaret River region is a 5-hour drive from Perth. Broome is a 3-hour flight.
Oh,
And so there's all these wonderful things, and you can literally hear the tourists coming in going, oh, we should do that tomorrow and we'll do that the next day. And I'm going, I've got some news for you. Yeah, you're not doing any of that stuff unless
you have a helicopter, right?
Exactly. So it's a bit of a scam, but yeah. So if you come out to Perth, I'll show you around, and yeah.
Maybe we'll see. I don't know. I had a webinar for the Australian user group, I think for Lino Schilde.
Yeah, Lino.
And
yes.
I talked to them, and yeah, it was a very, very bad timing for me to present from Germany to Australian time. But yeah, maybe sometime we visit Australia. We'll see. We write it on our list for being guest at a podcast.
Yeah.
And for sure, we will get bad headphones. I'm pretty sure. To have a callback to the last episode last year. This time, Connor get really, really decent headphones.
Very nice headphones.
Are you now happy? Is it okay? Is everything okay for you?
I feel I'm being treated like a human being finally.
The first time in this podcast, yeah. I mean, we had to have a proper hardware setup for you because we are now recording the video. But right after that, you will see.
That's right.
All right. Okay. So technically speaking, Caro, do you have any technical questions from new topics this year?
Yeah, I have technical. I just thought about, because we wanted to ask you something about traveling, and I thought that this would be perfect timing because you want to fly to Australia. So
yeah,
Connor
we
could share
need
something.
life hacks. That was a topic we were talking about early this morning. So we heard already that you're traveling so much around during the year, and someone who has obvious 1 million of miles on his airline wallet must have any good advice for traveling, people like life hacks or something. What do you do when you go to a hotel room first and do some magic?
Oh, okay, let me think. Well, I'll give you a couple options. First of all, if you want to hear me just bitch and moan about travel, I have a blog post I wrote. I think I'd had a bad flying experience and I was just so wound up. I thought I'm going to write a blog post about this. And so if you head over my blog and search for travel, I got my top 10 tips for travelers, but it's just me complaining. It's just me, it's got things like, when you get to the desk and they say, show us your boarding pass, that is not the time to put your suitcase down, unzip your suitcase, go hunting around for your boarding pass. Like, they were going to ask for it. You don't have to then take 15 minutes to do it. Yeah. Or things like, the overhead baggage, the carry-on luggage. I'm going, what, are you emigrating? Why did you pack, all your clothes, all your belongings, a ride-on lawnmower, a filing cabinet into your carry-on luggage? There's and I don't mind any of that if during the flight you see them use it. But people bring these enormous things on, they just jam them in the overhead locker, and then they just leave it. I'm going, well, why did you bother? Anyway, that's enough. I want to go ranting. So you can go
the positive side.
Yeah, head to my blog. My tips for traveling is number one is, right, do not ever underestimate the value of an airport shower. Because especially most of my flights are long haul flights. They're sort of normally 7-8 hours, and upwards. Going home from here, it's I think 7 to Dubai and then 12 to Perth. So, but what I find is whenever you have more than one hop, if you can have a shower, and sometimes I fly enough nowadays that occasionally the airlines I fly, I'll have a lounge access, which I've shower. But even if not, if I'm flying with an airline for which I don't have any particular perks, most airlines have a shower, even a rubbish one, available to all the public, or they have pay-per-use showers. But don't underestimate the value of that, because it literally turns, like if I'm flying 7 hours and 12 hours, that's 19 hours. But if you have a shower in the middle, suddenly it's 2 short flights as opposed to one enormous ordeal, because you don't have that sort of feeling of, when you get off a plane after 7 hours, you're carrying 7 hours of other people's breath with you. And you just feel awful. You just feel disgusting. And so getting on the plane for the next flight, you're going, it feels like this is hour 7 hours and 1 minute. Whereas if you have a shower, it's like a brand new flight.
So now my colleagues will hate me because I have to shower on each and every airport, even if it's a short haul flight, right? 30 minutes flight, and then I have to take a shower because I'm taking.
Magnificent. The other one is, it's funny, I have a hack for sleeping on planes. And the backstory is, before COVID, I managed to develop this routine where I'd get on a plane and just sort of zone out, like almost like in a trance, to the extent that occasionally the airline staff would often come up and tap me and say, "Is everything okay?" They thought I'd died. Yeah. And so back in those days, literally, I'd get on this long haul flight and like with the click of my fingers, they're going, "We're starting our descent." And it's just, I've just missed the entire flight. And it was funny, post-COVID, when I jumped on my first long haul flight, I thought, no problems. But I've lost it. I've lost that ability. It's just, so I remember I zoned out and I went, okay, how much time's passed? And looked at my watch, 3 minutes passed. And I go, oh, great, only 12 hours and 57 minutes to go. Yeah, it's like, and so even now I've lost that ability. So my hack for sleeping on a plane is if you can get a spare seat next to you, which obviously is that luck of the gods, but sometimes we get lucky. My travel hack is you lift up the armrest in between and you don't put your blanket on, jam your blanket on top of the armrest, put your pillow on top of that, and now you have the perfect headrest. You can lie on a bit of an angle. And I find I've told a few people this and they were like, doesn't sound that comfy to me. And then they all come back to me afterwards and go, I managed to sleep on that plane for the first time. So there's my sleeping hack on planes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There you go.
Need to try that.
Yeah.
And what else is in terms of hacks? In terms of hotel hacks, one of the things that I find is every hotel, you can never close the curtains. You can close them almost, but there's some light or something coming out, whatever. Is one of the hotel, and this is a common one, but I know a lot of people that haven't heard it, is if you go to the wardrobe, they've always got the coat hangers with little clips on them for hanging up trousers and slacks and stuff. What you do is you use that to clip the hotel blinds shut. And that's how you have a nice dark hotel room.
Oh, that sounds reasonably. And I know one too, because there's always some device in the hotel room that is having the standard
Got the light on,
so you get some duct tape with you in each and every travel, and then you just.
But the TV always has it. Yeah, smoke detector.
Yeah,
I'm not advising listeners to put duct tape on the smoke detector.
Yeah,
but I just came up with some way of putting something in front of it. So, what else in terms of hotel hacks? Oh yeah, I turn off the fridge because that's going to make noises during the night. That's always a pain. I have no idea if this is true, but ever since I heard it, it's always made my stomach turn. Someone once told me, they said never use the kettle in a hotel because what happens is people used to do their washing in it. Like they'll wash their socks and underwear in the hotel by boiling the kettle. So I have no idea if that is true, but since I heard that, I have not used a hotel kettle.
Yeah.
No, I cannot do.
Wow.
So apologies for sharing that. Maybe I've spoiled hotel kettles for you for the rest of your life, but I'd recommend, like if you're sitting there going, this green tea tastes awfully sour, then you'll know.
And made of cheese in it. All right. No more kettles in the room. Okay. Coffee machines are okay, right?
I assume so.
Okay. All right.
Coffee machine, I'm sure will be fine. But yeah, kettles is one I just can't. And for all I know that this is a total old wives' tale, but now that I've heard it, I just cannot bring myself to use a hotel kettle anymore.
Well, I can imagine people do many things.
Yeah. And in a hotel room, you don't want to know about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so leading to that, there might be some weird moments in hotel rooms, maybe. So I presume you said go to India, talk there. But my biggest fear to go to India is you can't drink tap water. You shouldn't drink tap water, but you can shower in it. I don't know if this feels good. And obviously, I don't know if I have hygienic expectations from there to be not that good, and food, and I don't know what happens there. So I guess there might be some stories you might share with us what happened in different countries. I've
been remarkably lucky in India that I've had an occasional funny stomach, but never wiped out. And I've been fortunate. We've had some other people on the Indian tours who have gone down and gone down hard. But one of the reasons I would recommend if you're ever going to India is to do an event where Sai Penamrima is running it, is he looks after all the logistics. And obviously has a vested interest in this, in the sense that if he organizes what flights everyone should take inside India, he organizes everyone's what hotels he recommends. And as a result, it makes his life easier because in the following day when you're all going to the conference, you're all at the one hotel. We can all organize cars and Ubers to Woolley from there. There's no looking for people. There's no people getting lost. But also importantly, you've got Sai with you, who's local to India. He knows India well. And also, as a result, whenever you go out for a meal, someone might order something off the menu and Sai goes, I wouldn't recommend it. Maybe stay away from that. So he's very careful in making sure his guests stay healthy the entire trip, because obviously if he loses a speaker, then that just makes his life hard as well.
Sure.
So if you're ever going to India, do it with Sai. But some of the things, it's funny now that I've been to India so many times, the days of Sai looking after me have sort of dissipated. He's like, oh no, I'm going to go look after these people. You're on your own kind of, you're good. Like you stay at your own hotel. I don't care. But I jest he's a lovely guy. But as a result, some of the things you do learn is in terms of the water situation, generally in India, it's bottled water only. People say, make sure you don't put your head in the shower and stuff like that. That's a fiction. I've never had any issues. Same thing, like in terms of brushing your teeth, I just use the water from the tap. I've never had any ill effects. I know a lot of people will only wash their teeth with the bottled water, etc. But for me, as long as you're not consuming water out of the tap, you're always fine. The common one that catches people out is ice. You'll have a drink, but they'll say, "Oh, do you want some ice in the drink?" And ice can be a bit problematic. But one of the interesting things is, and I found this in any country, because when I was in South America for the Latin America tour, we ate some very interesting meals. India, there's obviously some very spicy meals, etc. If you think, oh, I don't want to get sick, I won't have a local meal, that's simply increases your risk.
Okay.
Because, for example, I know some people in India who've come to traveling to India have got sick because they've said, I'm not going to eat any of the Indian food. And so they're just ordering a salad and things like that. But most of the local, in these countries, the local foods are cooked to within an inch of their life. So any bacteria is long since gone. But if you have like a fresh salad, which has been washed in local water, then you're like playing Russian roulette.
Yeah.
And it's funny how the people that are worried about getting sick generally get sick because they were worried about getting sick and they therefore went away from the local
exactly
foods.
The wrong things, right?
But yeah, I've very rarely got sick in India, but I know that, there's been a few people on the tour who have been, but that's just one of those, but I call them anecdotes. Like every time something goes wrong, like I've had some, horror stories traveling, where missed flights, or I remember once I was stuck in China and in the Shanghai airport, there was no English signs at all. It's unlike most places where there's the local language and English. In Shanghai, but it was all in Chinese. And there was a problem with my boarding pass in the sense that because I was leaving late at night and I was boarding before midnight, but the flight was leaving after midnight, the date on the ticket suggested that I was meant to be boarding in 24 hours time as opposed to 10 minutes time. So I'm trying to explain this to someone who doesn't speak English. And that's my fault. I'm in China. I'm the one at fault here because I don't speak the local language. But so there's a lot of me drawing clocks and pointing hands and stuff. But during that time, I'd completed my flight into Shanghai, but I haven't cleared customs. So I'm stuck in this no man's land where I can't leave and I can't go back. And I thought, it's going to be like that movie where that guy was, in the terminal, for the rest of his life. And I was like, this is not so much fun. But all these things, I think if you're stressed about them when you're traveling, then you're in trouble. I mean, I've always said that half the fun of traveling is bitching about traveling. Half the enjoyment is sharing stories with your friends about how this airline went here, his airline went there. In fact, even, not that I want to turn this into a travel podcast, but even coming to DOAG, originally I'd booked a short holiday with Genevieve, my partner, in Tasmania on the east coast of Australia, just on Saturday, Sunday. We were coming back Sunday night. And we were in Hobart, meant to be flying Melbourne to Perth. The Melbourne flight got cancelled. So then we're like, what do we do now? So jumping on the internet, phoning up Qantas, sitting on hold for an hour. And they said, we can get you to Sydney. That'll get you from Sydney back to Perth, in order to come to DOAG. So we're flying to Sydney, and then halfway through the flight, the captain comes on and says, just to let you know, there's catastrophic storms that have shut Sydney Airport. So we're flying to a place called Canberra now. And we land in Canberra, and there's 100 planes all just landed there. They're all just, wherever they'd come in Australia going to Sydney, they'd all been forced to just land in Canberra. So as a result, we ran this huge queue to fly out to Sydney once the storm passes. We had to refuel. We get to Sydney and we're thinking we've missed our flight, but luckily that flight had been stuck as well. So we're like, doing that classic run through the airport, trying to get to the plane. We get on the plane and we sit there for an hour because there's a million planes now wanting to fly out of Sydney now that the storm's gone. Then they come on, they say, look, we're really sorry, but there's an 11 p.m. curfew at Sydney Airport because of noise pollution. So we've missed that. So we're taking you now to a hotel. You can stay overnight. So it's funny, on Monday just gone, I flew home, got my washing out of my suitcase, put it in the washing machine, dried it, put it back in the suitcase and took a taxi to the airport to come to DOAG.
Yeah.
But as I said, this is a story I share. Like at the time, I was swearing and complaining, and my dog's looking at me going, what is wrong with you? Yeah.
And this is, by the way, the reason why I had to send so many invites and find a proper time slot, right? Now we have the real reason.
But yeah, so as I said, when things go wrong at travel, I like to try laugh them off, because it makes for a funny anecdote later on. And that's, what's the saying? Experience is what you get when you're expecting something else.
Wait a second. Now we have the perfect short for YouTube now on video.
That's true, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, then they're absolutely necessary that there are people who are ranting about traveling, because I love to watch them. When I sit somewhere in the airport or somewhere, even on train stations, I'm sitting there watching people discussing about, hey, this cannot happen. This is always a problem with the Deutsche Bahn or with the airline XYZ. And I was sitting there and say, all right, we have the same problem now, and you are ranting about it, and you're very high blood pressure and I don't know, risk to faint. And I'm sitting here just, I cannot change anything, but I love to see how they are reacting right now.
Really? Because it stresses me out when other people are ranting.
Oh, no.
I thought other people watching you rant about things, this stresses you out. Yeah, I mean,
I get the feeling that Kai and I are the kind of people that bask in watching other people's misery.
maybe a little bit.
But it's true. I'm always bamboozled when you see people at a desk who are just losing their mind at someone behind the desk. And I'm going, what outcome did you think was going to happen here? Did you at what point did you think this was going to end well for you? All that's going to get you is either a no-fly list, or if 5 seats come up on some flight, there's no way that person is picking you.
Exactly.
It's like, it's just mindless. You wonder, what are they thinking? So.
Yeah, they have to leave. They have to express their bad feelings about that and maybe feel better after that. But yeah, there's no positive side on that. Because if you say, oh, flight delayed, whatever. But sometimes I think they lost 2 of my bags on a flight from Boston to Frankfurt. And they said, all right, we have a problem with your luggage. I said, all right. So what happened with my luggage? It's still in Boston. Oh, wait, maybe we have 1 of your 2 bags. I said, okay, either it's a shitload of sweets I brought for my family, or it's my clothes. And they said, okay, never mind. Both bags are still in the US. I was saying, okay, I don't have even a toothbrush. I don't have anything on me right now. And I have a very long flight after me, jet lag and everything. And I have to buy everything new.
Yeah, but you enjoyed it. I remember
this is the
you
first
went
time
shopping.
We had this. I mean, I hopped on to the taxi, went to the biggest shopping street in Frankfurt, and then I got everything new, like $600 for one single outfit, I guess. New shoes, everything, hygienic products, and like the good jeans and so on. And I enjoyed having new clothes, and my bags were there like at 21 p.m.
Now, you guys are Apple guys, not Android, are you?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
You're both Apple. So what are your thoughts on, are you ever thought about the old AirTag in the suitcase?
This was the time before AirTag. There was like,
but would you do it now? Like you see people, on Facebook, and it's like, oh, my bags are here. The AirTag told me, and the airline's this. And
I've done it, yeah.
Okay.
I've done it, yeah. But I mean, AirTags are working like this broadcast Bluetooth signals, I guess, or some. So it's not Wi-Fi or not.
Yeah. It just needs to find another Apple device, doesn't it?
Exactly. And everything, if anyone in the plane is having their phone in flight mode and everything, and you're just landing, turn on your phone and you see, where's my AirTag? Then maybe the AirTag was not connected already to different devices and they were not sending it. And so it's the last seen AirTag position in the airport you left. And then where's my bag? And then it's right below, right?
I was on the EMEA tour recently, and in fact, I forgot to mention that on my calendar of what I'd done. I was on the EMEA tour for the first time earlier in October. And one of the things I was impressed with, I think one of the airlines, who was it? I think it might have been Blot, maybe Polish Airlines, that you'd get these notifications on their app saying, yep, just letting you know your bag has now entered the airline, the airplane.
Mhm.
And then it'll say, yep, your bag has now been taken off the airline and is heading toward the baggage car. You got these little
Mhm.
notifications about what your bag was doing, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
For all I know, it's just an automated fix like this.
Exactly.
Like, we have no idea what you're doing.
I don't know.
But it just,
Do you have a bag?
But I mean, it's it's true. Like, communication matters so much more. Like, it's like when you're on a flight delay. The frustrating thing is not the delay. The frustrating is sitting there going, I have no idea what's happening.
Mhm.
Is my flight going to leave in an hour, 2 hours, whatever?
Yeah.
If they come on and say, we're doing this, we're trying to fix the wings or whatever.
It's communication, right? It's
Yeah.
everyone feels better if they're informed. Yeah.
Yeah. I know we have talked about traveling very a lot.
Welcome to the YouTube audio.
Devs on travel.
That's right, travel.
But I would like, talk about some technical stuff
Let's go.
also, because we had a talk with Gerald Wenzel yesterday, and he talked about some smaller features of the new versions of the 23 AI. And he said, for example, he liked the sessionless transactions. And I just thought, because we recorded with him in German, I just thought maybe we can talk about this, or you can share another feature you like between the 23.1 and now the 23.6.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Sessionless transactions, an interest in. Now, I'm doing a demo of this later on today, but funnily enough, the demo I'm doing is travel related. So
Go ahead.
this is unplanned, but it's a lovely segue. So it's what used to happen is, and this is the demo I'm doing later on today, but you log on to your airline website, you booked a flight, and it's almost time to check in, and you say, I'm going to reserve a seat. And back in the good old days, we're talking like before the internet, this was typically just a very simple, you'd go to your travel agent and they would do it. It'd be a client server program running forms or something. And they would do in SQL form, the most simple thing possible. They'd simply say, you want seat 42A. So they simply do, select from the flight where the flight number is this, the seat number is 42A, and seat assigned to someone is null. For update, you'd lock that row, make sure no one else has got it, and then you'd update it and say, yep, 42A is now Connor McDonald, and commit. Job done. It was an easier time. it was a better time in IT. Then, of course, the internet comes along and microservices this, microservices that. Airlines now have code shares and partnerships. So nowadays, if you were doing that same thing, you would select from the table for that particular row for update where no one's yet assigned to it. But then if I'm on Qantas, then I've got to make sure that no one on the Emirates website has done it because it's a code share. I got to call the Emirates service. Then I got to call the Qatar service. Then I got to call the American Airlines service. And then, of course, nowadays, because they charge you everything, I've got to call the frequent flyer program microservice, which works out what your status is. And then based on that, we call the payment service because we're going to charge you $10 if you want to book that seat. All this stuff goes on. And all that time, you've got that row locked. And that's just not practical nowadays because in the world of connection pools, if anyone saw Jasmine Fleury's connection pool talk yesterday, you can't be sitting there on a limited resource like a connection pool with one of those pools currently marked as inactive or unavailable to anyone else because you've got an open transaction in there for 60 seconds while you've called 37 microservices around the world. So as developers, we've had to make it really complicated now. You can't just do a lock and hold that lock open. What you have to do is, we've had to build this ourselves. You would put some row in there saying, okay, Connor has that seat, but this transaction is now pending. And you commit that. You actually end the transaction so you can release the connection pool. Now you go off and call the Emirates service and the Qatar service and this service, that service, whatever. And then you come back once all that thing is, done. And you say, okay, I'm going to do another transaction where it changes it from pending to confirmed and commit it. And that sounds easy enough, but it introduces a whole new set of problems. What happens if when I call one of these services, it never responds? Well, now I've got this row that's marked as pending. So now I've got a garbage collection program I have to write that goes and does timeouts to make sure that pending rows get cleaned up, made available. And we've all had those things where you go onto a website and you book, say, for a concert ticket or something where you book a slot and then the website crashes. You come back and you can't book that seat anymore because it thinks you're still in some other session,
Yeah,
pending.
but sometimes it has a counter on it, like your ticket is
Yeah.
reserved for the next 6 minutes or 7
Exactly.
minutes, and then it will be released. Right?
And so all this stuff just goes on, and it's just complexity for us. It's a worse user experience, whatever.
Mhm.
A sessionless transaction is the ability for you to come on to a connection pool and say, I want to take a lock on a row. But rather than while I'm going doing other stuff that now transaction is unavailable to anyone, I can literally free it up. I can leave the transaction open, but I no longer own it.
Mhm.
I can simply say, I'm done with it. And the best thing is I can go call on all my various services. I can come back, and of course, by random, I'll get a different session in the connection pool. But I can say, I'd like to bring that transaction that was existing in that session, I'd like to reclaim it in my session over here because it was really my transaction. I just want to continue using it.
Mhm.
And so all of a sudden, I don't need a pending status and a garbage collection program and all this kind of nonsense. I'm doing what databases were designed through, which was lock a resource until I'm ready to commit it, but without the overhead of it being a problem in the modern way we build applications. So sessionless transactions, I think, is super cool.
Mhm.
Anyway, that's the English translation of perhaps what Gerald was saying.
Exactly. It was almost the same example
Yeah.
he chooses. He said microservices for all the different areas from booking vacation, I guess. It was
Yeah.
like the flight, the hotel, everything.
Okay.
And then you pick up always, each and every microservice is picking up the session to move forward instead of have everything in different sessions and transactions.
Yeah, but he was not. It was not his first use case. He said he's not yet into this one. He is into other use cases
Mhm.
more. But yeah, that's I
And
think,
one of the things I
personal.
like about 23AI is there's been a number of things I've seen where the documentation says this feature has been invented for this particular reason. Yet when I've looked at the feature, my first thought has been, I know exactly a problem that solves, which is not the one that's documented. Another one is this thing called reservable columns, and which is the ability, it looks like, it gives the appearance that two transactions can lock the same row at the same time,
Mhm.
uncommitted. And you think, doesn't this break database locking? Like the whole objective of database locking is to not allow this. But a reservable transaction is your ability to say, look, I have an interest in this row, but I'm aware that other people also have an interest in this row, and I don't want to block them. From the application code's point of view, it thinks it has locked a row.
Mhm.
So it is unchanged. It simply says, I want to grab this row. It might be, for example, an inventory counter of how many iPhones I have in stock. So I want to, someone's bought an iPhone, I want to drop that by 1. So I do an update and say, lower it by 1. The problem is if someone else has bought an iPhone, they also want to lower that stock by 1. And in times gone by, that's a big contention point. You've now got this concurrency issue in your application, which you have to now solve. And it's hard to do because you have to now manage, how do I make sure we don't get the lost update problem where both of them take the iPhone count from, say, 10 down to 9,
Yeah.
whereas it really should have been 10 to 9 and 9 to 8 if two people were buying an iPhone. So what this does is it gives the impression that you've locked the row, but it does what we had to do manually as developers. It actually took your intent and put it in a sort of a queue and says, when you come back and commit, then I'll actually go do the update. So in this queue table, it says, yes, Caroline's bought a phone. She thinks she's done update the iPhone table, set it to, from number of rows, number of values, number of phones in stock to number of phones minus 1. And we'll tell her that's what she's done. For all intents and purposes, your code thinks you've locked that row and done that update, but we didn't do it. We just put it in a queue. You come along, do the same thing.
Yeah, but how we can say that this is a real operation then? Because is there only the delta saved in a database, like -1? And then after the queue was done, is saying, okay.
Yeah. So like in the queue is literally an expression of intent. It's not the iPhone total goes from 10 to 1. It literally says, take the iPhone row and subtract 1 from it.
Oh, okay. So you're updating the row, not saying update count to 9.
That's right. We're simply saying we're going to decrement that count.
Yeah. So you have to take care of that on the programmatic side of your,
And so your code has unchanged. Your code both simply said update, reduce it by 1.
Mhm.
You think you've locked the row, you think you got exclusive access to it, but we didn't actually lock it. We've let everyone think that they've locked that row. You then commit and we go, okay, now there's time to go get the entries from that queue and do the actual work. And it's done in commit sequence. As a result, you don't get lost updates.
Mhm.
And everyone thinks, oh yeah, like you log on, you say, oh yes, the counter's gone from 10 to 9. You log on, it says, oh, it's gone from 9 to 8. So you don't get lost updates. And it's funny enough, this was once again designed from a microservices perspective, because microservices want to, all have concurrent access to common rows. But for me, putting microservices aside, a problem that's existed throughout all applications forever is that issue of summary level data. Because the example I'm using is, if I'm having a system where people can buy iPhones, the issue is not the insert into the orders table that, Caroline's done an insert, Kai's done an insert, Connor's done an insert because we've each bought something. The issue has always been the summary data, saying, okay, I need to update the row that says how many iPhones I have in stock. That's always been the friction point. And people have avoided that. They simply say, well, let's not have a summary data. I'll have a materialized view to do it in the background. Or I'll just not have any summary data at all, and I'll do it at runtime, which means now your reports are really slow. There's always been a problem solving this issue. And now problem goes away.
I have some questions.
Yeah, it's a mind-blowing thing. Like, how is this?
What the other question? What happens if I roll back my transaction because some error?
From your perspective, you have issued update a row. Let's say you've added 1 to a value.
Yeah.
So it was 10, and you've updated it, and you've now updated it to 11. If you do a select, it'll say you've updated it to 11. But we didn't the update. Your select has gone and looked in the queue table and said, oh yes, from Caroline's perspective, she's added 1 to this value.
Yeah.
So it knows that the queue table exists. If you roll back, all we do is we throw away that entry in the queue table.
Nice.
Because we never actually touched the real row.
Yeah.
It's yet to be done. If you commit, that's when we go, okay, at this point in time, I go get the entry from the queue table and really do the update. But because they're done in series, because it's all coming from a queue, then we preserve that order.
So it's
and things get even more interesting. The only thing I've really noticed that is probably a change to what you would consider application behavior, because the objective here is that you let people think they're doing an update.
Yeah.
But we want to hide the complexity from them, whereas before they had to do it themselves.
Yeah.
You get the interesting thing is, let's say there's 1 iPhone left and you both want to order it, and we have a constraint that says the number of iPhones can't go below 0. So you would do an update and say, okay, you're taking it from 1 down to 0 because that's the number of iPhones left. But you haven't done that update, it's in the queue. You come along and you want to do an update.
There's still 1 in stock. And
of course, you think, oh, this will work. So the question is, how do we manage this? Because if you were to both commit, we would then have a data corruption. So what we do is, the only thing I've really noticed is that normally a constraint in your own session only looks at committed transactions. By definition, that's what, in this case, it's a bit different. When you go to commit, or when you go do your update, we're going to go look in the queue table and say, even though Caroline hasn't committed yet, we know that if she did, you would get a constraint error. So you might get a bit of a preemptive constraint error. It's literally telling you that, as it currently stands, you would be okay. But because Caroline's transaction started before you, if she was to commit, you would not be okay. So we give you a constraint error right there and then. There's basically, you're heading into bad territory. We can't guarantee that you would have had a problem, but we're going to make sure that we never get to a situation where if we allowed the commit, you would end up with a data corruption. So it's pretty cool stuff.
It's a really cool feature because it's such a simple, it sounds small and simple, but it's also a problem I think many companies are facing, for example, for invoice numbers, because I don't know if it's in America or Australia the same, but in Germany you have to document every number which is not used, which was not used. So many people put some tables where they update, they log these rows, they update, or a list of numbers which are documented. And
you grab one of the, you sort of grab one as opposed to using a normal sequence.
It's pretty nice. I really like it.
I'll give you another one, which I like. Rest assured, we could go for hours.
I guess so. Go ahead.
One's called transaction priority, because one of the great things about a database, one of the great things and the bad things about a database, both at the same time, is it's a very democratic system. If you lock a row and I want to lock it, I don't get to because you locked it first, and vice versa. Everyone is on an equal playing field. We're all the same. We're equal in terms of our power, right? Whoever locked it first gets the row. That sounds lovely. It's fair. It's just. It's a perfect world. But the real world is not like that. Let's say, for example, Caroline's Java programmer, right? Little bit
to the fullest.
Shivering right now.
just Java programmer, little bit lazy. Lazy. Often will basically start a transaction and then go, oh, it's 10:30, it's coffee time. So leaves that committed transaction, disappears off, grabs a coffee. So that's fair enough. She locked the row. No one else had it locked. She's entitled to that. It's an equal playing field.
Mm.
The daily payroll run comes along, which is going to pay all the employees in this company. It wants to lock that entire table. And of course, it fails.
Mm.
Your daily payroll run just ran because Caroline's getting a flat white with whipped cream.
That sounds like me.
And so that's when you realize that in this wonderful just world of equal playing field, that's maybe not what we want.
Mm-hmm.
Then the reality is maybe the daily payroll run, which pays all the employees in the company, is perhaps more important than Caroline's need for a coffee with sugar.
Mm.
So transaction priority in 23AI lets you assign levels of importance to your ability to lock rows. So by default, everyone has an equal priority, so it maintains the existing behavior. And that equal priority is low. But we have 3 priorities. We have low, medium, and high. So what would happen is we don't stop anyone from locking rows still. So Caroline can still think, I want to get a coffee, I've locked a row, and off she goes. But her priority is low. The daily payroll comes along and you can say, well, the daily payroll, I'm a high priority transaction.
Mm-hmm.
What'll happen is it'll try lock those rows and wait just like normal, because we're going to give Caroline a chance to come back from her coffee and, commit the transaction. But we can choose a timeout. We can say, if I'm a higher priority than someone who has a locked row, after this many seconds, 10 seconds, 20, whatever, I'm taking over.
Mm-hmm.
And that will happen. The daily payroll one will wait for, say, 10 seconds for Caroline to commit. Caroline ain't coming back anytime soon. And so it says, I'm going to force roll back her transaction.
Mm-hmm.
So her lock is thrown away and the payroll run goes long. Everyone gets paid. Everyone's happy. Caroline comes back and says, I'm going to do something. And it'll say, I'm sorry, your transaction is no longer active. You've been forcibly rolled back.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more reflective of the real world there. What's the quote from Animal Farm, George Orwell? All animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. It's the same. In the real world, there are levels of importance to transactions. Some transactions are much more hurtful if they fail, and others aren't. So that's a cool feature as well. That's
But
transaction
developers
priorities.
has to be honest then, right? So I think if everyone is saying, oh, this is a high priority table lock now or row lock, right? So it's always high priority, then you don't use that feature properly. But so Caro has to always use the lowest level of priority.
Basically, the feature at the moment, my understanding is you can nominate what people are allowed to have.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah.
it's a privilege to be
It's like
priority
pseudo.
transaction. Exactly.
And, how do you set this priority? Per statement or per session?
Per session.
Per session.
So you could do a log on trigger, which will basically set it.
Mm.
Now, don't get me wrong, if you gave people the alter session privilege, and they're allowed to change to whatever priority they want, then they can obviously circumvent it. But this is one of those things where, you would use it judiciously to actually decide what things are pretty important.
And I have another question. Sorry. I use it also for my experience here with the 23AI. So if I have, for example, if I don't get a coffee, I just programmed a really slow process and still lock the table, and another statement, for example, after that is still performing. And then the daily payroll or monthly payroll process is coming. Do this, so this process still rollbacks my process because it's still running. So
Yes.
it doesn't matter if I just wait idle a session or if I...
No, because even if you're idle, you still have an open transaction.
Yeah.
So it will end your transaction.
Yeah, okay.
So you may have happily done that update and now you're moved on to other things.
Mhm.
But until you've committed, you've got those rows locked and we're going to sit there and
Then
say,
it's gone.
So I have to, if I program a process, for example, which takes 8 hours, and then there's, of course, process with higher priority, we have to think about this if it's really good. Okay. Nice. Interesting. I don't know if my English was good enough, but you understood me.
Perfectly. It's great.
Okay.
What else we got? What other 23AI features?
I think we have time for one more.
Yeah, one more.
And
Come on, go ahead.
I like that. That's sort of like,
One more.
he's starting to talk a whole lot. It's like, we need to wrap this guy up. Okay, I got one more. Okay, so I'm duty bound, obviously, to talk about AI. Woohoo! Yeah, AI.
Yes, of course.
So it's funny how everyone's, all the demos you see, and not just from Oracle, from anyone in the IT world, it's all about, chatbots or talk to your database, talk to your application. You guys are Apex guys, we've got this thing. I can now, in natural language, say, give me a region, give me a page, give me an application. I can go into Live SQL and say, give me a data model, and it does the DDL. All these things are super cool. But I think on day one, when these things are available, I don't think they'll get used a great deal. And this is not me dunking on the features. I think there's that inbuilt fear that people have that if I'm talking to a large language model, which might be sitting outside my database or outside my data center or outside my region, in the world, it could be, if I'm using, OpenAI or I'm using Cohere, how much am I sending? What am I revealing about myself or my data to the? So I think there'll be a natural caution to this approach. So that's why I think it will come, but I think initially there'll be a natural caution to it. However, what I think will be an absolute game changer on day one when people are running 23 AI is the use of vectors, which is related to AI, for ad hoc search. And one of the demos I'll be doing later on this afternoon, but I did it earlier this week as well at my talk, is I have a simple table which has a list of drinks in it. It's drink recipes. So how to make a gin and tonic, how to make a mojito, how to make a tequila sunrise, et cetera, et cetera. Nowhere in any of that does the word cocktail appear. It just doesn't happen. It's just because they're recipes. And the recipes say this is how you make a gin and tonic, not this is how you make a cocktail. So you think about ad hoc search today. Someone comes to their website, your website, and they type in, I'm looking for cocktails. And we say, no rows selected. We have no hits because the data doesn't understand what humans understand. We know that if I see the word gin and tonic, tequila, sunrise, whatever, these are cocktails. But the database doesn't know that.
Okay.
If I take those, and this is the demo I do, if I take those recipes and convert them to vectors, then I take the word cocktail and convert that to a vector, then whichever vectors are closest in terms of distance, because vectors are ultimately just points in simple terms, let's say points in three-dimensional space. Typically it's 1,000-dimensional space, but humans understand three-dimensional space a little bit better. If we plot them in 3 dimensions, the vectors for various drinks will be close to the vector for the word cocktail.
Okay. Yeah.
So I simply say, okay, show me the vectors that are close to the vector for cocktail. And lo and behold, out comes gin and tonic, mojito, whatever. Other information in that table, car manufacturers, cities in Europe, etc. Those vectors are a long way away in 3D space from the vector for cocktail. So all of a sudden now, you have this, ability to, I search for cocktails. It says, here's some drink recipes. I search for, funny white stuff falling from the sky. And it says, oh, yes, you're interested in the Nuremberg weather. Even though I never typed in Nuremberg, I never typed in weather, it goes, oh, yeah, funny white stuff from the sky. That's snow, etc. So all of a sudden, you talk to most customers of any application out there. And the most common sentence I often hear when you've delivered a bespoke application to people, they go, how come the search isn't like Google? Yes, that classic thing. People want their search to understand the human relationships to data. So on day one, I think vector searching will blow people's minds because all of a sudden, any application that has ad hoc search, which is pretty much every application, it's a game-changing thing for them because all of a sudden their search will blow them away.
Definitely looking forward to those 3 new features, and I guess we might invite Connor to the next podcast and call it like the Vectors edition, because I guess I have hundreds of questions about that and how you can achieve your goals when you have big data tables and so on. But unfortunately,
hold on. I have one last 60-second feature for you. I got to say,
Connor, go ahead.
this is for your benefit, not mine. I'm making a sacrifice telling you this far. But I know that you guys are Apex guys, huge fan of Apex, right? The awesome thing about Apex is great until you want to call a REST service. Because you call Apex web service and the first thing it says is certificate not valid because you're calling a HTTPS website and it says, oh no, you haven't got the SSL certificate. And what do? You can't fix it as an Apex guy.
No.
You've got to go speak to the DBA and the OS admin. You've got to go download the certificate from Chrome. You've got to right click on the little padlock. Got to make sure you get the right one at the root level. You've got to export it to It's got to be base 64 PKR encoded format. What if you get it wrong? It's not going to work. Then you got to find an Oracle client that has Aura PKI in it. Then you got to create a wallet. Then you got to add the certificate to the wallet. Then you got to copy that to the database server. Make sure it's on all the servers if you're running rack. Got to make sure that thing's backed up. And after all that crap, you can call a web service.
Yeah.
In 23 AI, rather than typing in the name of the full wallet path, like, when you type in the wallet, you do file : blah, 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 /UO1 / yada. You type in the word system : and it will use all the operating system level certificates that come with servers to reach out. So as long as you're calling a web service that uses one of the common certificate providers, you're done. No wallet, no nothing. There you go. That's a little gift for the Apex people.
It's so cool because I had the exact problem I had a few weeks ago, and it was pain. It was just pain.
There you go.
As we already learned from the sessions before with Jared and so on, you will still have that problem for the next couple of months, right? So because
but months, not years.
Yeah, but you have to wait until the new version comes out. Then the customer will adopt it, and then you are able to.
Now, I know you're all keen on the on-premise release date. Let me give you a little sneak. January 27th, 2025 is my birthday. It's got nothing to do with the release date. But note that down. Start saving.
So we have some deeper insight already. So this is not a good guess, I guess.
That was for a moment you were like, oh, then no, I got nothing for you.
Now I definitely want to throw something at you. I think I will close the recording before, and then we get into a big fight here in the recording room. But so this was the closing statement, me throwing things at Connor. But just kidding. Thank you very much for attending again, Connor. We will see you next year.
For sure.
At least, and we will wrap up what's happening in 2025, and you say exactly the same as 2024. I was in India and so on. But either way, thank you for attending and waking up so early this morning for us because my good time management. And thank you, Caro, for also coming that early in the conference area and having the chat about the different travel aspects and new features in 23 AI.
It's always a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.